Hi, I'm Dan Murphy, and you're watching Around the Towns. This episode, I spoke to Bill O'Donnell of the Norfolk Registry of Deeds about the registry, so let's take a look at that interview. Hi, I'm Dan Murphy, and I am here with a guest to discuss the Registry of Deeds. And why don't I have you introduce yourself in your role there?
Sure, Dan. Well, my name's Bill O'Donnell. Thanks for having me, and thanks to Dover Sherborn Cable for doing this. I've been registered. It's an arm of government many people don't know about, but it's an arm of government that deals with probably the biggest asset we have, which is our homes. How I ended up there, it's funny. I do believe in public service. I went to school at Severian Brothers High School. I grew up in Norwood and went down to Washington, D.C. and worked for Congressman Moakley. I went to Georgetown University. Came back home and went to Boston College Law School, worked as an assistant district attorney in Norfolk County. And so I really do believe in public service, but I've also been in the private sector as an attorney. I had a partner law firm, and you're paying bills and you're seeing how things are in the private sector. So that's a little bit about my background, but that's kind of ties into the registry. It kind of combines public service. I think when you think of the registry, it deals with people's homes, and that's something that's very important. But I've also tried to bring some kind of business thinking or run it like a business, and that's kind of been the balancing approach that I've taken at the registry.
Okay, and how long have you been at the registry?
I've been there since 2002, so time goes by, 15 years, and there's been a lot of changes there. When I first got there was literally a year's worth of mail sitting in boxes waiting to be recorded. So a lot of the modernization initiatives have taken time, but we're getting to the point where we've completed a lot of the things we started. So it does take time, but I think the modernization initiatives at the registry is what I'm most proud of. The mission's probably the same as it was in Norfolk County. The registry started in 1793, and Dover is one of the 28 communities that make up Norfolk County. And the mission's probably the same: make sure the documents are recorded accurately and securely and efficiently, and that the community can rely on it. And when you think about it, it's a big part of our economy, whether it's here in Dover or regionally or Massachusetts or nationally, is the real estate economy. And if you can't rely on the records, homes aren't being sold, commercial development isn't taking place. So I think that's been the cornerstone of our economy, whether it's back from 1793 to the current day. But the services are delivered in a little different way, and I think that's where we've taken advantage of the advances in technology to make it a more modern operation.
Yeah, and so, I mean, where's in case people don't know, where is the registry located specifically?
Sure, the registry, it's located at 649 High Street in Dedham, Massachusetts. If you come by Dedham, we're right across from the Gold Dome Superior Court. And it's a good point. That building is open to the public. We, as part of the modernization, we have over 45 computers sprinkled through the building. And it's not just for attorneys or title examiners or engineers. Anyone can come in and use the computers to access the records. And we still do it the old-fashioned way. We pride ourselves on modernization, but we're one of the few registries in Massachusetts that are still printing books. When I started, we were at book 17,000. We're approaching book 36,000. So a lot of some people still want to come in and do it the old-fashioned way, and so we still provide the indexes and the books so that people can do it that way as well. But they're welcome to come by physically. If you want to take the virtual trip to the registry, you can go on our website, www.norfolkdeeds.org, and there's a lot of good information on the website. There's information for first-time home buyers. There's a lot of real estate information. We have information, every community, it doesn't matter whether you're in Dover or any of the communities in Norfolk County, someone has struggled with foreclosure. We have information on foreclosure assistance, that if people find themselves in trouble, the best advice I can give them is get some help early. And we've partnered up with a couple of nonprofit groups, Neighbor Works of Southern Massachusetts and Quincy Community Action Program, where they're nonprofit, they're not charging people, and they try to give some people some guidance. They have some classes on financial literacy. Sometimes with foreclosure, it's just a matter of some bad luck or bad timing as far as losing a job or getting sick. but they try to work through people's problems to hopefully keep them in the house or have that tough conversation where they may have to transition out of the home, but some real good advice. So again, there's a lot of information like that on our website. So if people want to, go onto our website, they can get some good information like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's really kind of the big thing is that at the registry, you kind of think of it as just sort of housing these documents, but there are other things going on there as well. And I mean, do we want to just talk about some of the other, the way that some of these services are set up? Or
Sure. Well, you're right. It starts with documents and books, and it's kind of a paper-driven business, but I think it was being paralyzed by paper, which is why we've tried to computerize it. We try to bring the registry's records into people's homes and businesses. So if you go to that website, you can look up all that information, and you can check our website. We host computer seminars in the fall and the spring, and people come in at 4:30, and we have a class and try to teach them how to use the computers. And what's good about the computerization, it's taken a while, and I've been involved in sports that you learn there's no I in team. So when I mention these things, it's because we have a good team down at the registry of workers that have helped modernize the registry. But if you went to book 1, page 1, the first document from 1793 is viewable. So I'm probably the proudest of bringing internet land record research to the registry. So it may be paper-driven, but it's all available, and again, we're trying to bring the records into people's homes and businesses. So, and the other way we do that is through our outreach program. We've been to the, 28 communities. We get to go to the town halls. We bring our computers, and people come in with questions. They may need a copy of a deed. They may want to know if a homestead was recorded. So we try to we're able to provide the information through the internet by being out in the community. We've been invited to community groups such as Lions clubs, Rotaries clubs. I've gone to veterans organizations, whether it's the American Legion or the VFW, and we bring our computers, and people always have some real estate questions or just want to check to see if their mortgage has been discharged and things like that.
No, I mean, and I think that there's a real interest in looking at this information, and I think one of the things that's really great is that this can seem really overwhelming, but your office is willing to help people who may not have the went to law school or have all this legal background to really know.
Well, that's a good point, Dan. And my father climbed poles for the Boston Edison for 38 years, and when you're talking about what you're doing at work, and he's still around, he's 80, he's going to be 87. He said, remember, some of us don't know anything about computers, don't want to know anything about computers, don't care to know anything about computers. So we did create a customer service center. You can call that number directly, 781-461-6101. So we have staff there and computers and resources, much like we do when we go on the road to the town halls and the various community groups, where they can try to answer questions and give you guidance. As far as, do you have a homestead recorded? Was that mortgage that was paid off years ago, was it discharged? So yes, we have a customer service center, so, to just try to ease people's concerns or try to help them. Again, trying to have a customer service oriented operation. And we've also tried to demystify things. For instance, mortgages. When people borrow money, they record a mortgage that tells the world they owe the money. But a lot of people don't realize when your mortgage has been paid off, you might have refinanced, you might have been lucky enough to pay it off. I have 3 children, one, 2 are out of college, one's in. I'm still borrowing money. But when that borrowing gets paid off, you want to make sure there's a mortgage discharge recorded. And we've seen a lot of people come in saying, look, I'm trying to sell my house, I need to get a mortgage discharge. Now, I'm a big believer in community banking. If you go to the local community bank, they give you good customer service. You go in and they see that it's been paid off and they'll get the discharge. but some of the larger institutions, they're getting better, but they weren't always the best with trying to help people out. And why is that important? Well, on our website, we have a document called "Where Has My Bank Gone?" Because people forget a lot of banks have gone out of, some banks went out of business in the 1990s. Other banks have merged. So when people have to try to track down a discharge, which is a 1 or 2 page document that tells the world that that mortgage was paid off, and it's needed, it's a title issue if it's not there. That document can try to help. That document has state and federal resource information, either the website if that's how you roll, or telephone numbers for people who aren't so gifted with the computer, to try to get going so you can get the discharge. So there's a lot of consumer issues like that we've tried to broadcast through the registry. So it's not just a matter of recording a document, it's about doing things that protect what's behind that document. For instance, your home, the homestead. It's something that a lot of people aren't aware of, and shows like yours, Dan, can at least broadcast it. People should consider getting a homestead. In Massachusetts, it's open to anyone who has a principal residence. If you have a principal residence, you can declare an estate a homestead, which in essence puts a picket fence around your home. It prevents the forced sale of that home. Now, creditors will chase you. And certainly, there are times where a homestead's not going to win. If you don't pay the town of Dover or the town of Sherborn their taxes, they can take the property by tax title. If you don't pay the bank, they can foreclose.
And I think,
But really, a homestead, everyone probably drives. They might think they have a lot of insurance on their car, $100,000, but they hit somebody and there's a $400,000 case. That insurance company is just going to pay the $100,000, but the advocate for that injured party is going to be looking to assets, and your biggest asset's your home, to try to satisfy the rest of that case. So that's probably the best example of why people should consider having a homestead.
Well, I mean, in addition, I think maybe to clarify a little bit more, what's the difference? Where other ways that people can own real estate other than declaring a homestead? Or
well, you get to own the property by deed. The homestead, it's no substitute for good insurance, and hopefully you never need it. The homestead is sort of a separate document that kind of protects the property. When I first started as register, it was $300,000 worth of protection. It's been increased to $500,000. Although I think the judges realize the intent of the legislature is to make sure people aren't forced out of the house with something like that. People can also own their home in trust. And the legislature, thank your state reps and your state senators, your local legislators, have expanded the homestead in saying that depending on the circumstance, you can have a homestead when the property's in trust. So there's different ways of owning the property, but for most people, you might own it individually. Hey, you could be 18 and own it. If you're lucky enough to be owning property at 18 and it's your principal residence, you have a right to declare another document besides the deed, and that's this homestead form.
Right. And I think one of the other things that's really interesting about the Registry of Deeds that I don't think people realize is how much information is public record. And that's just something that's interesting from a perspective of being able to look at documents and see the history of things.
And I recognize,
it can be scary.
It's very transparent, but it's all public record. So nothing that's on the internet, it's by law, it has to be there. You could come into the registry and look it up, and we've had to take steps to realize, hey, maybe working in the district attorney's office, I realized people do bad things. We started taking Social Security numbers off a long time ago. In fact, some of the lenders were getting mad at us because we weren't taking documents with Social Security numbers on. So sometimes I recognize there are concerns when there's information out there. But as I said, if you go on our website, a lot of people look it up because it's part of business, it's part of the real estate economy. But we're seeing more and more people, Dan, using the registry records for genealogical and historical work. We've just completed a project from 1793 to 1900, those documents were handwritten. The Register in 1900 was probably talking about his modernization efforts, which was the typewriter. But the documents were hard to read. If you go online, you can view all those documents. They're all handwritten. What we did is we were the first registry in New England to undertake a project to transcribe those documents. So if you go book 1, page 1, you can see the handwritten document. If you hit another button, the transcribed version of that document can come out. And it's important because for history to come alive, it can't come alive if you can't read it. And Norfolk County has a lot of history. There were 4 presidents born here in Norfolk County: John Adams, John Quincy Adams, John F. Kennedy, and George Bush Sr. So there's a lot of information, a lot of good information out there, and a lot of people we see more and more using the records for historical and genealogical research and interest.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was one of the things that's really interesting, is to undertake such a project. Like, how did you go about organizing and getting all those documents transcribed?
Well, it was a process, and it was tedious. And it really started because I felt like it was hard to read those documents online. The beauty of going on the computer is you can zoom in and out, but it is hard. But my youngest son is in college, but when he's graduating high school, I noticed a lot of his contemporaries. I went to the St. Catherine's School in Norwood. I knew cursive. Some of them don't know cursive, and I was starting to get worried. And one of the reasons I'm glad I did it, I didn't stop the project for this reason, is there's people that don't know penmanship, don't know cursive, and they may not be able to read these documents 3 generations from now. So we undertook to do it. It was a lot of work. There was over 450,000 documents that fell into that category between 1793 and 1900. But it's a lot of people have really taken to liking it and saying a lot of good things about it. So.
Yeah, and then, I mean, I guess this doesn't really affect Dover that much, because Dover has always kind of been part of Norfolk County. But as communities have come into and left the registry, have those documents kind of moved from different registries?
No, they stay. As a matter of fact, for instance, I'm from Norwood. Norwood started in 1872, but it was part of Dedham. Yeah. So sometimes for some of the records, you have to look under Dedham, the town of Dedham, to get the Norwood records. And some of the communities, everyone wonders why, when you look at a map, Brookline is kind of by itself. Well, Roxbury, Dorchester, West Roxbury, Hyde Park were all part of Norfolk County, but they got annexed into the city. So sometimes people that are doing research in Boston have to come out to Norfolk County, because the records, they didn't get switched to Boston. They stayed here in Norfolk County. In order to do the research. Brookline stayed by itself and always voted to stay with Norfolk County. So there's a lot of good information, and that's sort of the historical. We're trying to be modern in another sense, and I should bring it up. There's a lot of fraud that's out there. The FBI says that property and mortgage fraud is one of the fastest growing kind of segments of white-collar crime. And what we've tried to do at the registry, we won't be able to prevent fraud, but we have a consumer notification anti-fraud program where you could go on our website, sign up for an email notification if something with your name comes across. Now, I'm William Patrick O'Donnell, William P. O'Donnell. I get emails for William J. O'Donnell, William T. O'Donnell. I don't consider it inconvenient. So if a transaction comes across and it's a William O'Donnell, it might be a different middle initial. I can look it up. It's not me.
Yeah.
But there might be a time where all of a sudden a document comes through and I'm like, wait a minute, that's a deed. I didn't sign that. Or that's a mortgage on my property. How did that happen? I didn't prevent the fraud, but we have links to the various law enforcement agencies here in Norfolk County that you can get in contact and say, hey, this got recorded. So you're not going to prevent the fraud, but you can get on it right away so that it doesn't become a bigger problem than it already is. So we try to, we recognize history, but we're also living in times where, unfortunately, there are a lot of scams. So we try to be modern in our approach, and so it's easy to sign up. Go to our website, sign up for the consumer notification, and it's as I said, you may get a couple of emails that aren't you, and it's not your document.
Yeah.
But that's good. To me, that's the price for at least being vigilant to make sure that something bad doesn't happen.
No, I mean, I think that's one of the things that's really good about the registry is it provides these resources to allow you to monitor these things and be very transparent about everything.
Well, we've tried to do that at the Registry of Deeds, and again, for most people, sometimes they might go there once every 25 years. I mean, we've done a nice job. The staff there are fixing up the building. It's a building from 1903, but we have closing areas. We asked all the communities to send us pictures. The historical societies in the historical societies and commissions sent us some nice pictures, Dover included, and we have them, blown up and around, to make it a welcoming place. The town of Dover, as did other communities, we asked for a town flag, so we have them all in the record hall when you walk in. So it's again a nice building. We try to make it welcoming. We recognize that the mission it's really part of the real estate economy, and people appreciate that it's a nice building. They just want to make sure you're doing the job there. And I want people to know that the records have been backed up too. Again, trying to bring some of the, in private sector, they call it business continuity planning, that if there's some type of disaster, how you're going to recover from it. Well, as I mentioned, we're one of the few registries that still print books, but we microfilm all the documents by law. And some people say, well, that's not really disaster recovery. And I would argue that it is in one sense. Think about the floods down in New Orleans or recently in Houston. If a flood took out our building, how would we recreate the records? Well, our microfilm is transferred off-site to Iron Mountain in New York and Massachusetts. So we could recreate.
Right.
All the tape drives and all the computer stuff is backed up daily and weekly. That gets sent again off-site. And we have a disaster recovery office down the street where if something happens to that building at 649 High Street, it would be a struggle, but we can just go down to this building and try to get up and running so that closings will take place and transactions will take place, and keep that sector of the economy going.
You hope you never have to use it, but it's very good to have a contingency plan in case of disaster.
And it didn't happen overnight. When I first got there, you're coming from the private sector, and someone was retiring. I said, hey, where do you keep your backup? And he opened his drawer and he said, right there. Well, that's not good. That might have been how it was. But we've tried to roll with the times.
And I think that the computer age maybe has, one of the things that's interesting, I think that documentation that you had handed me before this interview, you kind of mentioned that a lot of the online, especially the transcriptions aren't necessarily legally valid, but they have the information for if you just need the information, it's going to be as accurate as possible.
Yes, we want to make clear to people the legal document is the handwritten one.
Yeah.
And the transcribed one, you'll even see on some of the transcribed documents, it's hard to read, and we even put a question mark if we couldn't decipher the word. So we just want to make clear to people that the legal document is the transcribed document.
Well, is the original.
Yeah, I mean it's the handwritten one.
Yeah.
The transcribed document was really done to just again try to just make things better for people, a more customer-oriented operation.
No, I mean, and it's great to just celebrate that history and just really give people the access to read these documents, look at these things. I mean, especially you look at some of the you mentioned the presidents that were born here. It's fun to trace back some of their roots and their property holdings and things like that.
And sure, and even. I love history, but my focus has been on the registry. But we have a notable land records project that we're working on, where we're trying to go through the different communities and not just elected officials like the presidents, which is great. Great, but Howard Johnson was a businessman. Helen Keller lived in Rentham. Trying to match up deeds with different people. There was a Secretary of State named Herder. From around this way. So we try to, it's kind of a great job. You kind of combine history with the modern times. For instance, we have electronic recording. When I first started as registered, they didn't have electronic recording. It wasn't even a notion. It got authorized by the federal government and the state government, where an attorney here in Dover could be doing a closing, and then check all the information online. The parties are all sitting in his or her office, and then they transmit over the internet the documents, and then we can record it. So we've been doing that, and it's still happening because Governor Baker in January signed a piece of legislation, and that piece of legislation has started recordings on the land court side of the registry. There are two sides of land. There's the recorded land and then the land court registered land side. And we've started doing electronic recording. We were the first registry to record electronically on the land court side, and that started in April. So we're still, trying to, be cutting edge when we can, and tip a hat to all the history. Like you said, there's a lot of great history in Norfolk County.
Yeah, it's great how everything just sort of gets expedited, and it makes things faster. Not necessarily easier for you, but easier for a lot of the people using your service. Because I mean, still sort of a lot of the back end work that you still have to do. That's the same.
Sure. But you try to respond to the users, and some of these users, I say, the attorneys, the institutional users, some of the lending institutions, they really wanted the electronic recording.
Yeah.
And again, we welcome if people come in. We do the recordings in person as well. But you try to respond to people that are in the community, institutions that are in the community, institutions and users that are using the registry, and you try to give them a service. And the electronic recording service, a lot of them have said it's just it's part of the society we live in. Everything's fast. Sometimes, unfortunately, everything's fast, but that's what we try to respond to.
Yeah, no, it's great. Well, is there anything else you want to add, or?
No, I think you've covered everything. One thing I would mention, and it's good. There are some scams that are out there.
Yeah.
There's one scam where they send letters, particularly trying to target the elderly. For $15, they'll send those people a homestead form. Now, you can go online and download our homestead form free, and for $15 they're just giving you a blank form. They're not filling it out or anything like that. Or if you come by our office hours, we have people come by and kind of execute a homestead at the office hours. That's one scam. Another scam that's been taking place, and it's still happening, even though it's been on TV, it's been on the radio, it's been in the Boston Herald saying don't fall for this scam, is a group. When I first started, for $60, they would solicit people. They would get you a certified copy of your deed for $60. Come to the Registry of Deeds directly if you need a certified copy of your deed. Don't be paying $60 for something that it's exorbitant. Now a new kind of version of that scam is for $83. This group sends what looks like a tax bill. It says a document processing fee, and they give you information that you can probably get free from the town of Dover. The property value, the tax rate, and again a copy of the deed. That's kind of the hook for people. Again, don't fall for that. Go directly to the registry, and a lot of the information, like the tax information, you can get free from your town offices. And it may be legal. I've written letters to the past Attorney General, the current Attorney General, the Secretary of State. They have put out consumer alerts saying watch out for these practices. So as I tell people, it may be legal because in the fine print it says this is a solicitation, but I don't think it's right. I think it's unconscionable. And the best thing you can do is shows like this, just broadcast it. And so just put a public awareness out there that, if you get a solicitation like that, disregard it.
Right, and then also you had mentioned various ways that they can contact the registry, and they can always just contact you and sort of say, is this something legitimate? And your employees or yourself will say, well, not quite.
Before I came down here, a gentleman from another town, Holbrook, called up saying, hey, I got the solicitation. I said, it's a scam. He goes, I thought it was. And we do have people dropping the letters of solicitation off because, it just gives us reason why we're still out there, putting it on our website or coming to shows like yours and just broadcast it because it's still happening. So, and it's unfortunate, but that's again, part of the modern society we live in.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else you want to add, or?
No, I think we
we
touched everything.
okay.
And as I said, if anyone has any questions, they can call our customer service at 781-461-6101, or they can email me directly at Register O'Donnell, ODonnell, at norfolkdeeds.org. Or just go on our website to get any information you might need. And if you need any further clarifications or answers, give us a call.
Yeah, well, thank you so much.
Or come by an office hour.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what are the office hours?
Well, our office hours, it varies. We go through Dover. Today I was in another community, Stoughton. So we go through all the towns, and the towns are great. Dover's great. Usually have office hours. Usually Dover. I think that's in the spring.
And
so
then,
just check our website. We're out there.
Post it down.
Or it doesn't have to be Dover. We go to Walpole. You might come by and look things up if you have any questions.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much, Dan.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
My thanks to Bill and everyone over at the registry. Thank you for watching, and hopefully you found this informative. Once again, I am Dan Murphy, and you have been watching Around the Towns.